Thank you everybody for coming. Welcome. Our first meeting after the summer break. So we'll start with apologies and reasons for absence.
Councillor Brown has a previous engagement.
Right, we accept him.
Previous to this?
Yeah,
I'm
previous
afraid
to
so. Yes.
She's on holiday again.
this. She is away. Do we accept her reason? We do.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Does anybody have interests, pecuniary or other than pecuniary, that happens on the agenda? I didn't notice any.
No.
No, okay, so we don't need any dispensations. Reminded that everybody that the meeting is being recorded through the big BBC Circus silver microphone. Okay, we'll break then for the public session, and as usual, the first things we'll talk about, if people wish, are the planning applications, and we do them in the order we've got them. So the first planning application that we have seen is the one for Furners at 53 the street for an extension at the rear of the property. Does anyone here want to speak to that application? No. Okay, we'll move on. The second planning application is the one to reconfigure what is called here a redundant barn, but I know that there is a strong view that says it is a shed or a store or a whatever you want to call it, but not really a barn, at Ewe and Lamb Public House. By the way, the fact that it says barn is because that's what was put in by the applicant. I don't think Ash would take any notice other than to repeat what they're told. At Ewe and Lamb, and it's not really at the public house, of course, it's in the Mews, but by the by. Does anyone want to speak to that? Who would like to?
Who's first?
Well, would you like to put hands up and then we'll know what you're doing? Okay, two of you want to speak to that. Does anyone then want to speak about other things?
No, you can go first.
I have one other thing to raise, not
Okay.
planning.
But we'll do the planning first and then we'll come back to you after that. So
Thank you.
we'll start with you then, Greg. What would you like to tell us about the application in Ewe and Lamb Mews, bearing in mind that we do now seek to keep contributions to 3 minutes?
Thank you, Chair. I will be
If we
quick.
can.
First of all, I should say that in principle I support the reuse of this building, and a residential use, if it fits, is a fair enough possibility. I say if it fits because I think that's at the core of this application. I have 3 main concerns about this. The first is that I think the parking that is proposed for the new dwelling appears to compromise the parking for the Ewe and Lamb, and I don't think that it has been put forward with any interaction or agreement with the Ewe and Lamb, and is therefore a problem, both for the application and for the owner of the Ewe and Lamb. Secondly, I think in order to achieve the levels of amenity for the dwelling that the proposal suggests, they've had to put a garden, so-called, and a balcony in, and the balcony will overlook the Ewe and Lamb habitable rooms quite considerably. It's very close. And the garden, I think, itself compromises its own parking potential and is therefore problematic as an amenity. Thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, the saddest document in this application, in my view, is the climate mitigation strategy, which sets out to show why it isn't doing anything to mitigate climate problems. And that seems to me to be completely unacceptable in this day and age. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Just making a note of the third one. That's climate proposals non-existent. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name again.
Keith Bailey.
Keith, of course. Keith.
Number 2 Ewe and Lamb.
Yeah. Keith.
I have similar objections. Again, I'm not adverse to the idea of the barn being converted to a one-bedroom property, but yet again, the current application doesn't mitigate or meet the reasons for refusing it in the first place. I'm confused by the block plan that's submitted by the applicant. The red line around the plot, not too sure if that's supposed to be a site plan or an ownership boundary, as it were. Within that red boundary, there are three elements. There's the pub car park, or sorry, the car park for the 4 cars. There's also a private footpath and then the walled garden. Each 3 elements actually encroach upon the access road, which is a separate title and owned by another party. All the residents, including the owner-occupier of the barn and also the electricity substation, have easements, rights of access over the said access road. They also have covenants to make sure that they do not obstruct that access road. So if this proposal was to go ahead, it would interfere with the access into the news. We already have issues with deliveries of LPG. During the winter, on several occasions, LPG was not delivered by Flow Gas because they were concerned about obstructions. The access is our only means of access and egress. It's also our emergency route. So any encroachment onto the access road is unacceptable. And basically, that will be added to my existing objection.
Okay, good, thank you very much. Do councillors want to question anything that's been said?
Not
to this point.
I've got one very quick question Greg might be able to help with. An inverted balcony. I was trying to get a sense of what exactly that was from the drawings.
Yeah, well, it's a strange.
You might be able to shed some light.
It's a strange term, but all it means is that the balcony is cut out of the slope of the roof rather than sticking out.
Ah,
of the
right,
slope.
okay.
But
More
the
sensibly
effect is the
rather
same.
say
You
called-
stand behind a rail
Right.
that happens to be the top of that bit of roof, and you look
Okay.
out.
In France, more
Thank you.
sensibly, they're called roof terraces,
Mm.
which explains what it really is. It's an upstairs terrace.
Thank you.
A couple of questions, and it's quite possible I've missed something. The family who live in the Ewan Lamb itself,
Mm.
have they made a representation?
They have done.
Yes, it's.
They made a written
Did I miss
representation.
that?
It's going around.
You weren't here in time.
Because of ill health, they couldn't attend
So
the
you just
meetings.
came in tonight.
Okay, that's important.
Can I say something about the Ewan Lamb? They are the owners there can't make it into a private residence. It's been retained as a pub essentially.
That's still the
They
case.
live in the ground floor bars. They're still bars.
That
There's
is
no
still-
way that that
I
place-
thought that had been changed, but it hasn't.
Yeah, no.
No.
There's no way that that place could be a pub again if those parking spaces are given over to domestic use
And the
permanently.
parking spaces belong to.
Well, that's usually debate, I think.
Well,
isn't it? Yeah.
the land on which the parking spaces are belongs to this applicant. What arrangement or wayleaves there are between the applicant and the Ewan Lamb is unclear. To
Is
me,
that unclear to everybody, or is that unclear to
I can't tell you, I haven't
the
looked at
family
the
who live in the Ewan
documents.
Lamb as well?
We're not sure about that.
There appears to be some difficulty here, but I wouldn't want to
It might be.
make something
It might
up.
be, yeah.
Okay, can I just ask you...
Can I just say, the original planning application in 2004, the site was designed that there would be a pub car park, and the garage store was to go to the pub. Unfortunately, the developer decided to transfer the ownership of that land to his own personal ownership.
I remember it all.
Yep. And so, from my opinion, he welched on the deal with that.
Yes, I remember the detail.
So that should have
It
gone.
caused a lot of anxiety at the time.
Okay, I don't know if either of you can throw any light on this. I was looking over the weekend at the land registry title map, and interestingly to me, come in, you're all right. Interestingly to me, the barn is not shown as registered. Sorry, the shed, the store is not shown as registered, whereas yours is, and you and Lamb is, and 2, 3, 4, whatever they are. But
And number one.
and one, yeah, I'm not missing out number one. I'm just saying I didn't kind of go round all of them. I just saw that they were registered, and the ewe and lamb is, and the oast is come in, but the store is not shown as registered on their plan. If you click on it, it's given to you. And
Actually,
now I'm not saying you do own it, but
No.
what I'm saying is it's just saying, well, there isn't registration, you're the newest. So
Really?
we'll just go over there.
um,
And the same is true with the road, which you said was a separate title.
It
But again,
is.
it does not show on the land registry map. Maybe they don't bother to put it on, I don't know.
Again, the land, the Hopton Acre Homes, who had the land under the original registered title, went into liquidation, voluntary liquidation. So the access road has ended up as part of the Crown Property Estate and managed by a government body called Bonifacanti.
And it still is.
And it is registered.
Just doesn't show on the
But
map.
unfortunately, the registration of the proprietor is still shown as Hopton Acre Homes, who no longer exist.
and if I may add, the site, this site in question, I believe does actually have a title,
Yeah.
Jeremy.
Just doesn't, it's not on the map then.
It may not be on the map, but I have got it, and it is roughly that red shape.
Okay.
So did you get the number for it?
Yes, I haven't got it written down here.
You might send it to me.
Yes, of course.
Okay, right, thank you for that. Does anyone else have any points to float at this moment?
Well, can I say please that if it's the case that that barn is sold, gets planning permission to be a house and is sold on that basis, the ewe and lamb public house can never be a ewe and lamb public house anymore. So that's one loss to the community, which maybe we could manage to live with, because it hasn't been a pub for 20 years. We can't hold it to being a pub, or I don't know if Ashford can.
Well, it's not been permitted planning permission to cease being a pub.
Yeah. But we can't pretend that it ever will be.
No, I take your point. I mean, you're making the understandable error of assuming that planning rules are logical.
Is this on?
If the ewe and lamb was ever a public house, was ever sold, and somebody purchased it, could they just proceed to run it as a pub, the new owner?
In principle, they'd have a problem with car parking, even with the car parking that's there.
Indeed, but then would they need permission to reopen it as a pub?
They can only buy it as a pub, Alan.
It's actually...
So
It can't be bought as a private
So if I bought it, I
house.
could start serving beer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why not? Off you go.
Well, but you would have to apply for a licence, and a licence
No,
does involve some questions around access and so on. So it might
It
not be
has to be,
totally
it
straightforward.
has to be a fit and proper person.
That's right. Would you mind seeing me off?
Is the delivery hatch still in place?
Yes,
It is, okay.
that's on the main road.
That's on the other, okay.
Okay, right, thank you. Now, you, Greg, wanted to raise another point.
Not involved, not
No, not
related
on
to this
planning.
at all. I merely wanted to raise, in order that we keep the subject uppermost or not uppermost, but in our minds, of the bus shelter. It has taken quite a pounding this summer. It is worse than it was when we raised it before, and it does need sorting out.
No, I understand.
And it's busier than ever.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
I understand. Well, it's on the agenda, and Yvonne will report, not
Thank
very
you.
positively, I'm afraid, but she will report when we get to it.
Well, I'm willing to help move the subject along.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay. Anything else then in the public session? You came in later, Paul. Do you want to raise anything?
No, sorry, I for some reason thought the meeting started at
We
7:30.
used to, but we changed sometime early this year, I think it was. And the lady at the back, do
No,
we have
thank
anything
you.
to... So we're all done? Okay, I can close the public session then. So thank you very much. You're all very much entitled to stay here and listen, but you can't speak while the council is holding its meeting. So we'll go back to the beginning again then, councillors. To confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of July, because we had nothing in August. Did anyone have any concerns about the minutes?
No.
No.
So I can sign them.
Yes.
Good. Thank you very much.
They know we'll be looking at it again.
Well, I hope so.
Because,
Hope so. It's hard sometimes to explain. Oh, I suppose the appendix, I usually sign actually before the appendix, don't I? That's items for information. The meeting closed. Here we are. There we go. Have your pen back. Right, so that is minutes. Good. Matters arising. First thing is the update on ACRK, that's Action with Communities in Rural Kent, the charity that closed in January this year with a lot of pain and debts. I had a progress update meeting with Kerry Outlaw, who's the consultant you've heard about before, and Charmaine Keatley, who's the Chief Executive of Kent Association of Local Councils, on 28th of July. Since then, the constitution and the business plan and the trustees signing the necessary forms, etc., were finished off by the consultant and all sent off to the Charity Commission. But they came back 3 days later because they said it didn't meet their view of it being wholly charitable. We don't know why it wasn't wholly charitable. It was replacing pretty much what was the charity before it. But anyway, they made some suggestions, like replacing the word, what was it now? No, I can't even think of it. It was very abstract. They wanted to replace one word with another one that meant the same, which apparently was going to make it look a bit more charitable. Anyhow, it's being revised and then going again. It may be that all charitable applications for charities get refused the first time just to keep them busy. I don't know. But it was all a bit bizarre. We don't have any answer as to why KCC rejected giving them any funding to help get them started. They had earlier suggested that they would be able to fund them, but when it came to the decision, they changed their minds. That is funds that are provided to them to help charities and other organisations. It wasn't sort of council tax money. It's money that they get from the government or somewhere like that. So that didn't go very well either. We didn't find out why. Our county councillor was involved in that, but I haven't seen him and I don't know why the reasoning changed. Okay, that's ACRK. Questions? No? The next thing is the Highways Improvement Plan update. This is where we got together, Yvonne and I, a couple of months ago with KCC officers to talk about what we would like to see improved on the highways side. Initially, if you recall, they were positive about us getting a 40-mile-an-hour limit through Peaning Quarter, stretching from somewhere near Black Barn to the far end of the houses in Peaning Quarter, and a little tiny bit around the corner into Rolvenden, into Wittersham Road, going towards Rolvenden. They gave us a rough outline at the time of how much they thought it would cost, because if you recall, the deal is now that Kent County Council says what we can have and we have to pay for it. They pretty much resigned from any responsibility of doing anything on the roads themselves other than sitting in the office and being in charge. Anyhow, they have come up now with more definite fees. The design fee, which they put in their pocket presumably, is £1,068. The traffic regulation order, because they have to have a TRO to do it, to change speed limits, it's a whole legal process. Bureaucracy and adverting the newspaper and writing to people, all that, 2,850. The road closures, I presume they think they're going to have to close the road when they put the signs up. I mean, all they do really is narrow it a bit, like the one in Stone last week. But anyway, that plus a traffic regulation order to close the road, 2,000 roughly. And now I assume, Elon, but it's only an assumption, that they then include buying and putting the signs in, comes up to their estimate of 9,000 to 10,000, which is basically what they said before. And we had a discussion here and we said, well, we shouldn't have to pay it. And it'd be nicer if we didn't have to pay it, but if we're going to actually do anything, that's where we are. So we felt that we would go with that, and we now just need to clarify whether that is a decision that we're taking so Yvonne can go back and move forward.
We have consulted all the...
Oh, sorry, I should have said that, yes. You're right. I didn't read the rest of the words. So, if we agree and it matches the outline we discussed last time, we need to approve the budget, ask them to go ahead. We were asked to do an informal consultation because they didn't want to spend their time doing the formal consultation, which would also cost money. So we did an informal one. Yvonne wrote to everybody along the road that it involved, and got generally positive responses.
29 people I wrote to, and I had 8 positive.
Indeed. One of them actually came back with a load of questions, saying, you know, what's the objective, how will we know if it works, what's this, how does that, and all the rest of it. I replied to them personally saying, it's really not working like, it doesn't work like that. What we found out about speed limits, the main thing about a speed limit is that Kent County Council won't put a speed limit in if people are going too much faster than the speed limit. And they found with their survey, they did a survey earlier, that was okay. So they're willing to put it in, but as for the kind of looking at a business case and all the rest of it, I'm afraid it's just not that world. So are we happy then if we go, if we finalise that and Yvonne sends off the results of the informal consultation?
Yeah.
Yes, everybody's on that? Good?
Yes.
Yes.
Now separately, and this was a surprise just in the last few weeks, I was still moaning at the officer in KCC because they told us twice that we definitely couldn't tarmac the piece of grass near the hairdressers, where people walk in the road between the Memorial Garden gate and the hairdressers, instead of walking on the path because it's grass. And they told us we couldn't have that, and they had various reasons that they came up with, which I didn't think were very good. And I badgered them a third time, pointing out that their answer wasn't entirely consistent. And they came back and relented and said, oh, all right then, it'll cost a load of money, but if you really want to do it, then we won't stand in your way. But they've still got to go through, no doubt, the design and the consultation with utilities and all that stuff. So, we can make progress there. The reason for badgering on about that is because we tarmacked the space in the Memorial Garden so people can come from the bus stop through to the gate without having to walk around the front of the War Memorial, which is particularly dangerous. It is absolutely true to say that no one that I know of has been run over there or had their legs squashed against the wall, but it's definitely a risk. It's a bend, people have got their minds on other things, they can come down the hill and swing in there without really taking much notice and bump into somebody pushing a pram or whatever. So I would like to have people stop doing it. Now, until we pave the grass, we are not making it, I mean, they still do it one way or the other, but we're not demonstrating that we've got a proper safe route all the way. KCC's view is that they still have to walk around the back of the cars parked at the hairdressers. But indeed, so they do. They do already. They always will. So, you know, we do have a potential project there as well now. Now, I think that we need Yvonne, they said it'll be expensive. We need her to go and ask them what they mean by that. Because we know that tarmac in that world is going to be more expensive because they have to be on the KCC official list. And they're going to have to talk to utilities. And they're going to do this design, quote unquote.
Their email actually says that they're happy to move forward into the next stage of the scheme, which would be the design phase, and will give you an accurate costing for the scheme. To be able to move forward to this stage, you would need to pay a design fee of £1,068.
Indeed.
So if we wish to do this, we need to let them know and they'll arrange for the invoice.
Absolutely, no, I understand that. I just would like them to, I know they won't have given us an accurate number, but so far they haven't given us any number. And I think that they ought to be able to tell us whether they expect it to cost 5,000 or 20,000, because 20,000 is really too much, and 5,000 would be a snip now in their circumstances, and we'll just have to see what it is. But it's something we've been aiming to do for a very long time, and if it wasn't for KCC, we would have done it years ago. So can I ask that we all agree then that Yvonne will ask them for a wet finger estimate, subject to, obviously we can't hold them to it, but subject to, and then if that comes up with something sensible, I think if we agree now that if Yvonne emails us with what they say and we reply to her, then she can say, okay, we're happy or we're not happy or whatever, without waiting another month.
Yes, I would support that.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's excellent. So, I mean, that's actually something that we wanted in the first place, and here it's suddenly come through. Potentially. Right, next one is the bus shelter update, and we've had Greg and Kate remind us that it is falling apart ever quicker. Yvonne.
Yes, unfortunately I haven't gotten an awful lot further. Sally gave me a couple of numbers, one of which had said that he would be happy to, but it would be next year before I'd be able to get to it. And the other one I haven't actually got a response from yet. So we're not a lot further forward apart from it. Nobody's...
Third one?
The third one I haven't got. The third one was after I'd spoken to the second one.
Right.
It's the first one that you gave me.
I gave you 3 names.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the third one you said I would need to get the number from the other one, which I haven't.
Oh, right.
Because there was no, and I tried looking it up and there was.
Daisy chain.
I can guess it.
Oh right.
Okay, that would help.
And there was one that came through on next door. I saw a local.
Okay.
I can take it. Yes.
Okay, and I think also then, outside the meeting now, if you talk to Greg has just advanced that he may be able to give further help or advice or whatever, so that's something you can ask him about in coming days. I mean, we want to get on with it and we want to do it. It's just one of those things that's easier said than done.
Indeed.
Paul, can I just ask, the reply that we did get, was there any indication of cost?
No.
Just that he could do it next year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, more accurately, he couldn't do it until next year.
Okay.
Yes. We've got 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is another way, it's another nice way of saying yes but no, but,
Right.
you know, isn't it? Possibly. Swan in ACV update. Yvonne originally was told when it went in that we should hear by the end of September.
27th of September is
27th
the
of
date.
September, okay, which is a deadline, isn't it?
Within the 7 weeks.
Our borough councillor here, Johnny Shilton, in case anyone doesn't know who he is, replaced Mick Burgess, who's sitting quietly at the back. Johnny had a word with them and they said they hope to do it in August, which plainly they haven't done. So we're only now somewhere between now and the 27th, unless they miss their own deadline. And of course we don't know whether they will grant the ACV, and they granted one before. They may come up with some reason, let's call it, as to why they couldn't, because he's made representations of some sort, or it's closed, or I don't know. But let's see.
Jeremy, can I just make the point that most people might know this, but for the benefit of everybody, you know, the general awareness that is published in the local community magazine is that the landlord has said he's closing it in October and going to live in it himself and then apply for planning permission to develop it. I don't think he's going to develop it to another pub. But I think that's now out in the open, if you like. So I think the two aspects of that is, one is the ACV is obviously important, and secondly, we've been down the road of the previous owners trying to get permission for 3 houses, and when that failed, trying to get 2 houses, and then they realised they had to get all sorts of things from electricity charging points through the drainage, and eventually they abandoned it. But I just feel that we're going to be faced with that battle in the not too distant future.
Sure. It's interesting that, as was mentioned in the public session, the other pub in the village, the Ewan Lamb, that hasn't been a pub for 20 plus years, is still technically a pub, notwithstanding the owner living in it. Now it is a bit different, they are not the same, because that is a listed building and in the conservation area, and that does apply different planning rules. But nevertheless, we can see that a pub can be kind of restricted to a pub, and we'd have to hope that the same applied. But there will be all sorts of technicalities in that I don't claim to understand. Excuse me. One other thing that, just to add to what Paul said, it did go up for sale a few weeks ago, listed at 650,000, which we can be reasonably assured is well in advance of its value as a pub, or indeed as a single house, I suspect, unless it was a much bigger one. Okay, the last thing on the matters arising is CCLA update. CCLA, I'm never quite sure what it stands for. I think it's probably something like Church, Charities and Local Authorities.
Exactly that.
Right. It's a body that doesn't really specialise in, but restricts itself to handling money on behalf of those bodies. Set up in the 1950s, I think, when the law was changed, so that people like the church could invest rather than just keep the money in the bank. We did set up our account after previous meetings where we approved everything. We set up our account in the public sector deposit fund between last meeting and now, and we've transferred some reserves into it to take advantage of the higher interest rates that are presently in existence. So that's all go. And that's now settled down. We'll just carry on administering that account as the need takes. Questions? No? Right. So planning applications now. First one is Furners. I think you will have seen, everybody, a note that came through from the owners to say that they had their earlier application, which this council supported, rejected by the planning officer on grounds which seems to be to do with the listed building status. But it's been suggested that that 2-storey application was unacceptable, but a single storey might be acceptable. So they have put a different one in. Does anyone want to speak to that? We supported the 2-storey one before.
I support it this time round too. I've looked at it, and the only material differences it seems to be low. Well, there are other bits and pieces, the roof light and what have you, but no, I support it.
Colin?
Yes, I agree.
Sue? Sally? Alan? Me? Yeah? Everyone's on. Good. We'll support it again. I think a bit disappointing that they didn't accept the other one. It just makes
Is that, I mean, do we think that's standard planning behaviour that they would look at a listed building and say, we don't, you know, I mean, that seems a bit of a departure from the way they used to do these things.
My first rule of listed buildings is you can't guess.
No.
Just, I mean, you will have noticed in the past, I very rarely opine on the listed buildings. I just say it's above our pay grade. They do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Which isn't very helpful, frankly. And I'm all in favour of retaining our important buildings and listings and all the rest of it. I'm not in favour of putting them on a pedestal so that potentially they are just allowed to deteriorate because the best use isn't made of them. That's silly. And also, I'm totally against the fact that they're not allowed to put in proper double glazing, they're not allowed to do this, that and other, because, they didn't have it in Victorian times. I think that's bonkers and they're going to have to change it. And there is a bit of a mood coming now in the paper and all the rest of it that the government may actually legislate. And councils are a bit fed up with it as well. But I have kicked our local council, Ashford, to say that they ought to go and get a grip of their planners as well on that subject of climate change. Right, so that's furnace, we're on for that. The barn, or the store, or the shed at Ewan Lamb News, PA 2023-1519 on this occasion, previously of course 18-1043, 19-740 and 21-1512. It has a history. Right.
We've got to admire the severance in back to us again, but my view hasn't changed from the last time I considered it.
Sorry?
I don't have any comments to make.
None either way?
No.
Oh, okay. And abstained from something. Sue?
I think there's too many issues with that. No.
Too many issues.
Too many issues.
I will list them after you then, Sue. Colin?
Yeah. No.
Against? Paul?
I just had a couple of questions really. One I picked up, somebody said that the access road was owned by the Crown, and was the Crown a consultee? Well, because if it's not, then they've failed at the first fence, and they can go back to go.
Very interesting point.
The second point is nothing again on a planning application about foul drainage.
Yeah.
It's as if
Well,
it
there
doesn't
is,
exist.
they say they don't know what they're
Well,
going to
they
do.
don't know, and so I would reject it on that grounds. And it's sort of above my pay grade, I guess, but I did pick up on Greg's point about the climate change document being unacceptable. So I haven't changed my mind from previous, but that just reinforces the fact that it's a complete mess.
Indeed.
And it's not really submitted with proper care and attention.
No,
I reject it.
I agree.
Well, not support it, sorry.
We did get the email from the planning consultant, Emma Hawkes, who we know. It's a pity she's tied up with this one. But there we go. The external amenity space in the wall garden area, the inverted balcony upstairs, which is a roof terrace, the retention of 4 car parking spaces is what she is arguing. Now, the appeal under which the shed was built dictated that 6 parking spaces must be reserved to the pub. 6. She says in her application now that there are 5 and they're going to be reduced to 4, so it's only a loss of 1. Well, actually it's a loss of 2, and the 5 ain't true. If there's only 5, they've snitched one somewhere, because the appeal that permitted the shed to be built is definitely 6. I've always had it in my mind as 6, and I went and checked, and it is definitely 6. The last application, which was 21-15-12, I think that's the one I was looking at. That was when the decision was it's okay except there's not enough amenity. So that's why they've now said, oh well, we'll give you amenity, we'll put it in a balcony and we'll give you a garden. Oh, only lose 1 space from 5 to 4, etc. And all the points like Greg made about overlooking the residents of the pub. That decision also said there are some spaces for the pub, and also on-street parking is available, according to the planning officer. There is no way there is on-street parking available. Well, I mean, only with some danger.
Yeah,
Technically, correct.
Well, yeah, there's no yellow lines, but it would be dangerous. And actually what they'd do is they'd park in the lay-by where the bus is supposed to be.
That's right.
So that's not very helpful. The applicant also claims ownership of the land south of the shed that isn't registered, as I said earlier, and nor is the shed. I take Greg's point, and I did wonder if it's just not mentioned on the map. This point about the land owned by the Crown estate is interesting. Do you have some documentation on that?
I've been in contact with the Crown Estate solicitors. We've had various emails between us, and they've confirmed they are the trustees of the land.
If you could do that, please send us something.
Yeah.
Let me say that I think that the planners pull back from saying, you know, oh, well, they don't own the land or this, that or the other. They don't really want to get involved in it. But on the other hand, if it puts enough of a red flag up, it may be, well, you know, better to stay out of it, sort of thing. I think that would be useful.
Okay.
If I just break off momentarily, Mick, do you know from your past experience on the planning committee how they would deal with questions of ownership?
Of the land?
If it's represented as being owned and it isn't?
If the applicant can prove he owns it, it's all right. Otherwise, you've got to get the permission of the people who do own it. Because otherwise he hasn't got an access to his property. Because he could be stopped from entering the property because he's crossing a land. Often known as a ransom strip, as you know.
It seems to be that if you go up the left-hand side of the access where the car parking is, he potentially owns that. If you go up the right-hand side, which is technically the access that they're still saying is an access, he doesn't own it, but one of you said he has actually drawn his red line around that as well.
Yes.
So, okay, that's fine.
Part of it, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Let's just go back to the council meeting again then.
Just a thought, it's not meant to sound spurious, but I just wondered whether there would be any benefit, and you'd use a 10 licence, I suppose, of opening the pub for one day a year, given the fact that it is still a pub, and proving that that condition still exists, you know, and I don't know whether that would add anything to it, but has anyone ever thought about that?
I did hear...
And I'm sure that we could help Cliff, you know, wash the glasses up and provide everything, and probably get Ray to apply for a temporary licence as is done for the village hall.
I did also hear a separate story, which was that the Swan might argue that they're not the only pub in the village, because the other one is. And that might help them with their position. Now, that is bizarre in its own right, because it's strange to say, oh well, I can get the permission to not be a pub 20 plus years after the other one joined the queue, and sort of be in first. But I mean, these things are messy, and no doubt lawyers can come up with 3 different answers to the same question. Okay, so that's the barn at Ewan Lamb Mews. I think we're all
Can I
against
just
it.
ask Jeremy, is that a delegated one or going to planning committee?
I think it's.
I thought it said delegated.
I think it'll be delegated.
It is delegated, I think.
Unless our borough councillor here calls it in.
I'm just looking at the website. It is a delegated decision,
It would
unless the
normally
borough
be.
councillor calls it in.
It would normally be. I think that is one where some delicate footwork in ABC to find out what the lie of the land is wouldn't do any harm. But so far, to be fair, let's give Ashford credit. They have consistently turned down everything at the Ewan Lamb Mews, right from the very start before these houses were built. They only got built by appeal. They've always refused this as well. So unless they go off their normal line, we don't have a problem. But the trouble is, it's always possible they do. And then it's too late. So, good. Okay, we're unanimously against it. I think...
the things that they would see in favour of it are that it's a dwelling within the envelope of the village.
Oh yeah, we're all in favour of that. It's just too long space.
That is a plus for it from the planning perspective.
There's not enough space. It's the wrong place. It's not a very smart one-bedroom dwelling. A one-bedroom dwelling will usually go to an old person who wants a small bungalow. They do not wish to be going upstairs.
To an inverted balcony.
to an inverted boundary, yes. That's for leaping off of.
Really? Hang upside down.
Okay. Right, we'll put some words together and circulate them, but basically I read the last one, the one we put in last time, and almost just goes straight in again with some titillation and a few extra points on it. Okay? Right, on we go then. Village Hall Management Committee, the committee representative, we've discussed this here before. We voted for Sally to be the representative on the Village Hall Management Committee, but I was anxious about trustee liability after the problems with ACRK. Paul, you suggested last time we discussed it that we should look for insurance. I talked to BHIB, our brokers. I got a copy of the policy, or part of it, the operative part, from the Village Hall through either Paul or it was from Paul, right? Which ticks the first box by saying that the insurance policy is in the name of the trustees, not in the name of the hall, which is the key thing that BHIB said to make sure is the case. Now, I think that where we are then at this point is slightly in a stew of not quite knowing what the issues are. And it is hard to know how to move forward. One suggestion is that I think possibly you, Paul, because you know more about these things than anyone else. It's Hiscox, by the way, are the underwriters. We're not going to get anything out of Caden that we would trust, or Gareth as they are now. But it may be that you can engage in a discussion, having looked at the papers which Yvonne's got, with Hiscox to know what sort of policy it is. They will obviously not discuss someone else's policy with you, but I'm sure they'll be willing, if pressed, to discuss the implications of their policy wording in general, which is, if we put a trustee on, is our trustee taking the risk, and therefore have we got the risk? And to be professional, they should actually tell us that.
Absolutely.
And I think that would then perhaps
we might possibly, I haven't looked at it, we might end up with options which we can go one way or other, or we can join some several. But actually, if I was advising any trustee in a situation like this, I wouldn't accept joint and several liability. The most important thing is to find out sort of where the buck stops.
Indeed.
Yeah, and there will be. There'll be other village halls around the country who face the same challenge. We just have to sort of unpick it a bit.
The actual answer, as we've been through before as well, is, and it applies to ours, but it applies to a large number around the country, is they should all be incorporating the limited liability.
Is there I'm just thinking, is first of all, do Calc or NALC have a view on this? Because surely they would have had at least one member in the last 10 years who's been faced with the same issue. And secondly,
Calc has the same issue.
Okay, that's reassuring.
I'm nominally a trustee there, because I'm on the executive.
Right. Well,
so I'm not happy
let
about
us
that
know
either.
when you work that one out. The other thing is,
They're not
the magazine, the Parish Clerks magazine, I haven't seen it for a while, but it still exists. Anyhow, that was all really helpful. In terms, and there was a contact there on the legal side as well, and it often dealt with insurance matters.
I keep them all those pieces I tear out and keep.
I wonder if it's worthwhile.
I think he probably retired or died.
Yes, I was going to say, but they have got somebody else.
Yeah, no, they've got somebody else. Yes.
Paul Clayton, you're thinking of?
Yes.
I am. You're right.
Yeah.
But there's someone else. I'm sure it might be worthwhile just having a look through there, and if there's a contact, just give them a call.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think otherwise, if we dig out the document for you and you put a call through Hiscox with your smart wording, you should be able to get to someone who can tell you whether they feel there is a gap. Because, of course, Hiscox is a big broker. A big underwriter. They're going to have a lot of these as well.
The other organisation that's probably worth even just considering is the NFU. Because rural communities with village halls, etc., the NFU are a big insurer of rural community assets.
But ultimately, you see, that is now going to the village hall because they pick their insurer.
Yep.
All I'm saying is that they've got Hiscox and we can find out what Hiscox does.
Yep.
Because ultimately I'm quite aside from my underlying preference, but not for me to choose, that the village hall goes the incorporation route. And I'm trying to press that becomes a sort of a programme more widely, because I think there could be templates that would make it a lot easier and cheaper to do nationally. But quite apart from that, it's not for me to say that the hall should do it, but that would be my preference. Meanwhile, you know, we need to protect Sally rather than falling in the same hole that was happened here before.
Just out of interest, has anyone else stone? Because they will most likely have the same issue. They might not realise it, but
it's slightly different because apparently, and I sort of only picked up on this lately, apparently because theirs is a memorial hall, it comes under different, I'm not saying different legislation, but different provisions of some sort. Apparently the whole idea of memorial hall comes into a group of them in some way. You know, like we've got responsibility for the war memorial, because nationally all war memorials became owned by the parish council if there wasn't anybody else.
yeah.
You know, it was one of those things.
Okay.
And they're very clear that it's a memorial hall to the First World War. This one was probably built in the same circumstances, but has never been, apparently, a memorial hall. Right. Okay. These little things can be complicated.
Certainly.
Right, on we go. The future of the fir tree at the entrance to the Memorial Garden.
I hope you all looked at it and see what you think about it, but it appears to be
Very happy, isn't it?
Looking very sad.
Okay. Does anyone have any objections to it going? Sad though that is. Plant something else potentially.
Well, I was
if it
going to
should.
replace it with
I was
something
going to
else.
say we
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
normally be asked,
Yes.
but obviously it can't be in the same place because it's
Yeah.
not good to plant a
No,
tree where the
different
other
sort
one
of tree.
Have we consulted with our tree warden?
No,
That might be a good move.
it's not in the country at the moment.
Yeah.
For
Tell
another
him to spend his money on a new tree. I think
Okay.
it might be a good idea to
Well, what we need to do then, I think, if everyone agrees, is Yvonne needs to have it in her bring up files to speak to the tree warden and take his advice.
Yeah.
She also has to, and this may not wait for the first one, has to consult with ABC because it's in the conservation area. I think that's right.
Oh, we'd have to have
Yes.
Yeah.
permission for
Yeah.
it.
The
We'd
girth,
have to
it's
do
to
that.
do with the girth, isn't it?
Yes.
And then if that is forthcoming, it can be felled, stump taken out, new. I'd give it a bit of time and plant something else.
Are we then given permission now, subject to all what
Yeah,
you've just
I
said,
think if
rather than bring it back again?
Indeed, if we can set up that we've agreed to do it, and of course it has to get ticks in boxes as it goes, like a lot of projects.
Fine, but if we get the boxes, then
Yeah,
go ahead
indeed,
and
indeed,
do work.
absolutely. Absolutely. And then obviously we're then approving the cost. I mean, we haven't got any choice. We don't want it to fall down.
Because that's the only thing of the danger.
Indeed, and that's the point you'll be making to ABC as well. Right, okay. Now, the future of the website. The Parish Council website has for a long time been hosted by a firm called Hugo Fox for about the last 10 years.
Mm.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
The Hugo Fox has provided the hosting for free, and they've provided a template by which Yvonne puts together our website. They've decided, however, they can't carry on doing it free, so they want to start charging us for it. Now, Yvonne's done a sterling job in creating the website on that system, but to be fair, I think, it's in my opinion anyway, the great advantage of Hugo Fox was their freeness, not the fact that the template gave us a particularly well-structured or laid out or user-friendly look and feel and usability. It does carry a lot of information. We've got a very full website, we just don't have it very well structured, and that's simply because all Yvonne can do is stuff more and more into the structure that they offer. It seems to me that we could do with a better website than we've got, and if we've got to start paying for it, we should explore that. I'm not suggesting it would be as cheap as Hugo Fox, who don't do anything for the money except provide us the hosting and the template. I mean, to have but I go through other councils' websites on occasion, the others in Ashford. I did just over the weekend looking for all the updates on the chairman's names. They vary a lot. Most of them don't have anything like as much on them as we do, but they should have more on in many cases than they do. There are obligations that they're not fulfilling, but often they look much, much better. And we are really a fairly scrubby one by comparison. Others are, by the way, some of them on Hugo Fox. You can always recognise them when you see them. So that's the first thing. I think we should break out and have a better website. The second thing then is that when we set it up about 8 years ago or some such, the view was taken that we would keep it absolutely restricted to council's documents and business and nothing else. Quite a number of other local councils do provide a bit more for the community. How big the bit is varies. It may just indicate what else is around in the community. You know, there is a village hall, there is a church, there is a shop or whatever, a sports club. It may actually do more than that. There was a concern years ago that if we allowed anything on our website that was not ours, then we were running the risk of having liabilities for, you know, people putting the wrong thing on there. Now, I think that is controllable. The people manage it. The first thing to do, obviously, is that if anything else is on there, it needs to be made clear that it's not ours. Very clear. Secondly, if it's following external links, which a lot of websites do, they have a message that comes up when you go off to an external link saying, in effect, you are going to an external link. You are no longer, you know, on the council's website. This is no longer our responsibility. But that is an opportunity for us to consider separately to improve our own website, whether we want to do a bit more for the community. So, in advance of any firm research on this, I think the council might examine the costs of using an external contractor to produce a better, more attractive shell and template, which would then be a bit of a common effort where Yvonne would be putting most of the stuff on it, like, you know, the new minutes of tonight or last time that we've just agreed she would put on. But if she needs to have a new subheading of something or other, you know, like environmental projects or climate change committee or, you know, whatever, then that would probably be something that we would get done professionally so that it fitted well, it had its own picture, the menu structure was realigned and all the rest of it. And as I know that is what some other councils do. The one that I know in particular is Great Chart, which is bigger than us, but has a decent website, and they do it that, broadly speaking, that way. So where do we get to? My proposal is that because we're going to be paying for Hugo Fox from, when is it, the end of this month?
4th of October.
4th of October. We should move reasonably promptly because we'll start paying anyway.
We have to tell them.
Yeah.
We have to tell them, otherwise it will just stop.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So we'll have to, I mean, we won't do it that quickly, I don't think. You know, it's only 2 weeks. So basically, is it then sort of an annual fee or a monthly fee or what?
They don't say that.
It's a monthly fee.
It's a monthly fee.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, what they're now proposing, I've been through this quite carefully, what they're now proposing is 3 different options. A lot of the features they never supported before. Hugo Fox was set up by a philanthropist. I don't know if his name was Hugo, but that was the background to help parish councils get going without incurring expense. And I had a look at what they were offering, and I think it's a question of what we actually want. So, for example, one of the things that they put forward on their sort of second tier is telephone support. I'm really concerned that Yvonne just hasn't got spare time to do this.
Sure.
All right, and to get a level of telephone support and search engine optimization, all the things that you would expect these days from a website, we're going to have to go outside. The best example locally of going outside is Sue Ferguson's work at Tenton, but she's paid to do all that and does a very good job.
She runs the business.
She runs this business. One of the things that I thought was interesting that I looked at here was that they provide a planning tracker for councils, and I don't know what that actually means. But
it came in quite some time ago, but you have to have the borough council has to be connected with it, and at the time, Ashford wasn't.
Okay.
Some
must be, okay. I think you need to decide what we want, and I think the idea of having it in a broader sense rather than just purely parish council business makes a lot of sense. We have to kind of, I don't see it as a sort of a next door Mark II, because that has got a monitoring group, but there's a danger where something like this becomes a bit of a free for all.
No,
So we need
you're
some,
right there.
yeah,
We can't
some
have people
ground.
just posting.
But no, but I think we need.
Association.
Yeah, but I think we need to decide on what level of support we need. To what's the purpose of it? You know, what are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to measure? Because most websites these days can be quite smart at measuring the traffic and who looks at what, and so it's a dynamic thing. It's not a question of you go in, set it up, and 2 or 3 years later look at it. And what our budget is, because I think very quickly on something that was up to the level of some of the others, we could probably be quite quickly running at maybe £500-600 a month. You know, and that's. Well, you know, if you start adding
it, would be possible, but I'd hope it would not.
Yeah, but I've seen examples of on the charity side where charities have got involved and signed up and found that they couldn't get out of it, and it just creeps up. And then you'll find maybe there's an annual pricing review which says, you know, it's going to go up by the cost of living index or whatever it's called these days, plus 2 or 3%. Well, when you've got inflation running what it is now, suddenly you've got 11 or 12% aggregate increase each year. So all I'm saying is I think it's a good idea. It's definitely worth having a look. I think we need to keep the Hugo Fox one going in the short term until we, and then we need to decide the services that we want, who's going to use it, and what part Johnny's going to fund. For his column.
Right, well, I think the Borough Council will be able to talk to your website. That would be nice.
That would be good, wouldn't it? Yes.
Yes, I think basically then what we're on for, if everyone's agreed, is that we need to be investigating this and coming up with a more clear cut. It won't ever be, you know, everything from soup to nuts laid out, but it will be as Paul has suggested, a better view of what we want and what we would expect it to cost. One of my first calls, I think, would certainly be to Great Chart, because I've spoken to the lady there before who I know well. I know, it doesn't have to be these people, by the way, but I know they use a consultant who, I think they told me, are down in Exeter. But the thing is that, of course, it's all online. It's either on the phone or online. It doesn't really matter whether they're in Exeter or whether they're in Ashford. Quite how they came to pick them, I don't know. It may be, of course, that they started in Ashford and moved to Exeter. All things are possible. Right, okay, we're all agreed on that? Yeah, good, thank you. Right, correspondence. Outlook on Smith.
Yes, a letter from the Treasurer.
Mr. Burnett.
The magazine committee will be grateful if Wittersham Parish Council would consider giving a donation of £1,000 towards the cost of publishing Outlook on Oxley for Wittersham over the period of October 2023 to March 2024. We distribute 555 copies each edition and 5 editions per 6 months. We very much appreciate the support of the Council and hope that the magazine can continue to share information about local events and issues.
And I missed it. Did you make a suggestion how much?
£1,000, is it?
Okay. That's what we've done before.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to do that.
I propose it.
Good.
Yeah.
Second.
Excellent. Agreed. Right, working party reports, caretaker.
Right. I saw Alf today, came in with Sid, and we've got a new battery. So it's one of them goes nicely for the other one. You may have noticed sometimes halfway through the month it stops working. So I've got a new battery which he picked up today.
So we've got one that's, do we just have, we
We've
have
got
two, and
Yes.
one of them is a new one.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Yes, one was okay, the other one
That's good, okay.
not so good. Sally had mentioned that down the track there's a piece of concrete that sticks out. Well, Alf came across it as well, and he has since been down with a sledgehammer and knocked bits of that. Got rather hot and bothered doing it. He has spent some time doing other things for other people round the village. Somebody wanted to get close to their own hedge, but there was vegetation in the way, which wasn't ours, wasn't theirs, but he's said he would trim that back so they can get to their hedge. As another resident has had a lot of trouble with a neighbour and sand that's been overflowing, kids playing it and it gets across the path. Well, Alf has cleared that up and swept it back with the bristle brush that we've got for the play area. So he's been doing quite a bit of other stuff, not just for this village as well, he's been doing other stuff looking after it.
Within the remit of our beloved caretaker, the issue of the bins outside Dax's shop is getting, but I thought we were going to have some new ones.
We have one, he hasn't put it in yet.
Yeah.
I will
But it's
remind him.
I am on a daily basis picking more and more pieces up.
Okay, I'll mention it to him again. We do have it.
We bought it, it just hasn't been installed yet.
Yeah. It's not that he's not doing it, you know. I think because of the holiday period, etc., there's been far more refuse put in. So I did have a chat to him yesterday.
Well, Al.
No, to Dax. Dax is very supportive of, but Alf, you know, there's no danger about that. It's the volume as well, because we did discuss the possibility of having two bins, didn't we?
Yeah, but that's what we've got it. We've got a second bin, it's just not installed.
Yeah.
There'll then be two together.
Yeah.
Okay. Finance, the monthly transaction statements we've all
I've
had.
got two, obviously, in July. These could incorporate them in one, but it's too much days to do that. So, I'm not sure that there's anything. I have the Zoom licence fee.
Right, so got the July one that you've all seen.
Yes.
Didn't seem to be the filing cabinet that is now in the old post office in there with the files. Fits into this one. Otherwise, I think all straightforward. Caretaker, of course, is a sub-part of that. And then the August one, we've got the money moving around going towards CCLA, which we've already talked about.
I hope making it colour coordinating it helped a bit so you can see where it's going
Yeah, indeed.
to and coming from.
Indeed.
So it's stays within
Indeed.
the account.
Okay. It all of course stays in there, just in different places, and anything that goes from Unity Trust Bank, it still needs to be signed off by two councillors, the same as anything else. Right.
And I haven't had the statement for Lloyd's, so it's not reconciled, which means you won't have it to sign.
Okay, can I sign all of these? Is everybody
Yes.
something with that?
Please.
Okay. Is someone going to?
First July, was it?
Is someone going to propose that?
Yes.
Colin's
Yes.
proposing, seconding, Alan?
No.
Right, good.
should perhaps have said, although it come in next month, we have had the money in now.
You're
from-
giving me
caretaker.
2 here, but are there somewhere else then?
Yes.
Oh, I see, not higher up, okay.
Just sorry, they'll go in a minute. So it's July's.
Oh, just right there, what's that? Now here. Right, they're done then. Okay. Right. We've got our current account at the Unity Trust Bank and the other one at Lloyd's Bank. We've moved some money into CCLA, which is where we can get the higher rate of interest, but rather than it all go, which is a bit clunky, rather than it all going into CCLA, what we want to do is to keep our sort of ready cash for the next few months with Unity Trust, but put it in a deposit account so we get a bit of interest. We won't get as much, but we get a bit. And that means we've got to open a deposit account there.
It's called
So-
an instant access.
Instant access savings account.
Which at the moment is giving 2.75.
2.75,
yeah.
which is substantially short of CCLA, but CCLA is not administratively as easy
That's
for
right.
Yvonne to just pick money up when she needs it, and indeed for us to do it online it has to be done with documents. So if everyone is happy, can I have a proposer for that?
Yeah.
Sue, seconder? Colin?
Yeah.
Is everybody happy?
Yes.
We open
Yes.
a deposit account? Good. So Yvonne will do the paperwork on that. And I take it we can then have the same authorisations and everything.
Yeah, and it's going to mean a lot of form filling again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we just need to get on with it then. But it's all approved to do. Right. We know that things were considered by Ashford on the planning side since the last meeting. The rectory next door was allowed to chop down a tree. Dismantle fell to ground level considered since last meeting. Yeah.
No, but that hasn't happened.
Oh, okay. It's only we're only supported.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We haven't had a decision, I checked, and it's still outstanding.
I beg your pardon. When it said considered last meeting, it's considered by us.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
No, you're right. Equally, the land north of Peeling Quarter. Now, this is the way I was thinking of it. The land north of Peeling Quarter Road for the horses, that was granted with conditions. I went to look and see what the conditions were, and the decision wasn't there.
It was about
Has it
lighting.
appeared since?
It was about lighting, outside lighting.
Yes.
Yep.
And also the
private
entrance.
use.
The entrance.
No, I don't think the entrance was actually a condition, but they've done that anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, got plans
And-
amended.
Yeah,
Plans
off
were
the road.
amended.
Private use as well, wasn't it? Not
Yes.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
Yeah, that's all
Plans.
going ahead.
Private
Private
use,
use
not
only.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what we were asking for.
Yeah, the plans
Yes.
were amended
Right.
to put the entrance further back.
Exactly. Mm.
All right. And the lighting we were anxious about.
Yes, that's one of the things.
The lighting.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And then land adjacent to Poplar Farmhouse, the 4 dwellings that we were objecting to, they refused, and so their land has now been put up for sale for the 1 5-bedroom house that was approved against our objection, I think, years ago.
Yes. Yes.
And Cullen's Cottage Maiden Road got their waste water treatment
That's
plant,
been going in today.
which you supported very nobly. And Lloyd's Green, a single-storey side extension that went through as well, so granted. Okay. Open spaces. Anything on open spaces?
No.
No.
Well, I can just say that obviously the play area up on behind Portmead and Woodland View, Alfred reported that there was a bit of the new safety surface the kids had dug a hole in, and that's been repaired.
Right. Wouldn't be that.
Where are we with the playground? Nowhere. You remember the subcommittee we had that was terribly keen on this a year or so ago?
Yes, what did have you read your outlook?
Yes, I read my outlook, not this month.
Read your outlook, there's a piece in there about it.
I will probably go and do that.
Yes, and also Ashford have actually improved the equipment that we've got up there.
Excellent.
So,
And as far as my regular chasing of Ashford to tell us whether they are willing in principle to do a deal with us on the village green, I never get anything back other than,
Is this not something we're doing for
Johnny has, I think, gone and tried.
I have spoken to the portfolio holder and we have a meeting, although that is yet to be arranged, and I undertook a site visit with an officer of the council 2 weeks ago, just to show them around so that they had in principle an understanding of the areas being referred to ahead of said meeting. When I have a meeting date, I will let you know, but the portfolio holder seems terribly positive.
Who's that?
It'll be Kate Walder, so Rollandon, so not terribly far.
Good.
Yes, good.
Okay, good.
So some progress, some tentative progress, I would say.
You've got all the papers I sent you, of course, so
I do.
you've seen all the background.
Thank you.
Good, that's helpful. I think probably that was my error by thinking that the right answer was to approach officers and say, is this something that can be done or not? You know, that they would then say yes or no, and then we could go through the system rather than waste a bit like KCC in the road, you know,
Yeah.
rather than do it the other way round. And of course, they've always found it too difficult to actually think about it. So it's now had to go through the official route, which will then bring it back to the main way.
But hopefully tell them to do it.
Yeah, indeed. Sure, you're quite right. Okay, highways, apart from the hip.
well, only that I've got a result up at
Start.
Stocks
Well done.
Junction.
It's good.
That was very good, wasn't it?
Before the Third World War was going to break out. That's
You
on the
know
social
everyone's
media.
waiting for it to be done tomorrow, though, don't you?
Yes, that's
More or
the
less.
slight problem there.
More or less.
It is an interesting case actually that, I mean, I looked on Street View to remind myself, and the fact that there's just the one no entry sign there.
And
It's not
that school with.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not terribly obvious that you can't do what looks the obvious thing, which is you just go straight on.
And the paint's all worn out.
And all the arrows and that, yes.
But that little lane just down from there towards Acton Lane is in perfect condition.
Lovely, isn't it?
No,
God, it's got a new sign about the
yes.
width and what have you, yeah, what goes down there.
You've probably got anti-slip surface and
Yeah,
everything.
the whole lot.
POWs.
Just to say, there was a scheme to replace stiles with gates, and Yvonne and I put in an application for 4 that we thought was suitable, and unfortunately only 1 was accepted. Still, one's better than none.
Although, when I went then, before I spoke to the landowner, I then went into the see what exactly it all entailed. And the reason why our chap didn't know anything about it is because it was East Sussex and West Kent. Because obviously High Weald is mostly and that. So when they said we have included, they hadn't included. So I contacted them, but nothing. I've chased it, but nothing's come back. So, but that isn't. I mean, as you know, it's quite a nice style anyway, so it's not a terrible big problem. But it would have been nice to have it. But and I also, only because I'm a member of the Ramblers, but there was a training on path orders last night on Teams.
On what orders?
Path orders. When they put new ones in or changing the definitive.
Oh, it's a path order, okay.
A path order. I just thought it'd be interesting, so I did that for now.
Good.
And it's loosely connected to footpaths, but I've been approached again about having a dog poo bin down in the Swan Street area, and I wondered whether there was any reason why we couldn't put one between the Hopes and Dutch Cottage on the footpath side.
some silence.
Sounds a good idea to me.
It's protruding quite a bit, so it's got space for a bin on it.
Yes. It couldn't be, it's just that obviously residents don't like bins outside their houses.
Oh,
That's
but
the
then
problem.
Yeah, but
one of
they
those
moan.
residents
Yeah.
is always
Doesn't like
moaning
poo
about
outside
bags
it.
of dog
Yes.
poo
Yes,
down her
exactly.
alley.
Oh,
Yes.
in that case.
I was going to say, there's the one resident who moans all the
Yeah.
time.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, yes.
Was it you?
Not me. Not me.
I feel honorary
We would
appointment
pay
to
for
food
it.
bag
Right.
cider.
There was a time when Ashford was refusing them on the grounds that they have the obligation to empty them. But of course, Alf is emptying them, even though he actually is sort of doing a bit of a wangle with Biffa when he
I can say Biffa do the one outside opposite my house,
Yes,
and
they
so
do.
does Alf.
They don't, I was going to say, because it's in our contract to do it.
Mm.
So, I mean, our bins get emptied more because of that,
Mm.
all of them.
What
So-
may happen is if it did go in where you suggest, Alf would empty it, but Biffa wouldn't because it wouldn't go
Yes.
on their list.
Yes, it
Yeah.
But it'd get done once a week.
Well, yeah.
Yes, it will.
And the other reason that Ashford, one of their conditions was that it would be roadside, because originally we wanted it, people were talking about it being on Coronation Field, but that was too far from the road for the
It is
them to-
roadside.
Yes,
It is
that's what I'm saying. It is.
So could we just get one and get out to put it up?
That's what we've done in the past.
That's a good suggestion.
Well done.
I think probably you
You're
just need to
recommending it then?
talk to the residents.
You're going to second it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Done.
Okay. It's all to do except that Yvonne will ask the residents to make sure we don't buy it and then they create a store.
Well, of course it will. Good
We could ask for sponsorship.
Yeah.
The local resident.
Well, if that's a no, opposite there's another footpath sign, which is slightly in the hedge, but the hedge could be cut away a bit and it could go on there.
Whose hedge is it?
It's a
Yeah,
footpath.
Jennifer's, isn't it?
I think it belongs to
The one that
Road.
goes through the garden.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know the one you mean.
yeah.
Jennifer's or Simon's.
Action.
It's possible. Okay.
Go on, Ben.
Right, cemetery and churchyard.
Well, the only thing I was going to raise was the concrete, and that's been done. So.
Okay. Right, reports for noting from representatives on outside bodies. The CALP meeting that I attended last week. Reorganisation of neighbourhood policing, which I've shown you this before, I think. That's moving ahead. I mean, it officially started on whatever date it was the other month. But they've made some progress. They're getting more officers in place, and others are expected fairly soon. And they've still said it'll take about a year to get it fully staffed, but they are getting more. The chief, he's the inspector, but he was acting up as chief inspector, who came to see us last week. He's very pleased because a new crime investigation unit is being moved into Ashford Nick. Ashford Police Station is not a sort of public-facing police station. There's a counter there. There's no cells, but they do use the offices, and they're moving a crime investigation unit, presumably CID, in there. The benefit being that they will take over some things that presently the patrols are asked to do. So it'll give him a bit more time to do neighbourhood policing. There's a monthly newsletter now being issued online. And I think I gave what I came away with to you today. No? Well, today I was looking for it and I couldn't find it, so I thought I must have given it to you.
Well, since your meeting.
Yeah. And it's just disappeared then. It's been eaten in the office somewhere. There are now neighbourhood policing newsletters, two-sided, and they're on a ward basis.
That's the one that I've circulated to everybody.
That's it. That's what we're talking about.
No.
Okay, that's
Yes,
fine. I did give it to
sent
you.
it round.
That's okay. What they're hoping is that we will try to promulgate that across the parish more widely. Now, like all these things, easier said than done.
I think I put it on the website because it was easier to do. I couldn't get it on the others, but I have put it on the website.
and that sort of thing. If the website was better, then it would be, or when it's better, it will be easier for people to find it and view it. There's not a lot in it at the minute. It's largely just talking about the reorganisation and who's who, but it's a start. And there is some stuff on crime statistics. Very interestingly, Bethersden, is a hot spot. And I have an idea Woodchurch was either good or bad. But, you know, I mean, we're talking about small numbers generally. Unless you get into Ashford, they're big. Because the ones we got were for our end of Ashford. We didn't get all of it. Okay. There was an increase in motorbike crime and antisocial behaviour over the summer, and it was particularly acute in Stanhope, surprise, and they did seize some motorbikes. And the review, this is now not police, the review of the Ashford Local Plan 2030, that's the planner's plan that says where they're going to build all the houses, but it can't at the minute. That has just begun its review, which will take the next God knows how many years. What they've done is they've sent out their call for sites, which is what was starting off the present one about how many years? 10 years ago?
10 years ago, yeah.
They've just sent it out. It was issued last Friday. So,
to 2041, isn't it?
2041.
To 2041.
Ends at 5 p.m. on the 20th of November.
Yeah, these things are, and they'll spend years on it. Anyway, so they've sent out a call for sites. This council might like to consider whether it wishes to put Coronation Field forward for consideration. But that is how these things start.
Yes, that's right.
And there will be sites, I mean, like the one that we managed to get turned down by the Meadows will be put forward. The one for Stocks Road will presumably be put forward.
Stortsfield?
It's not impossible.
No, I know, but that's why it's so important to protect it.
Yeah.
But I don't think
there's no more news on the new lease.
No, and I did ask the other day where things were. I think it is still with John's solicitors.
The time is passing.
Possibly they need to be awakened from their slumber.
On the other hand, on the other hand, it may just continue in the same vein. That's the worry.
I did put a call through to Willie the other week, but I didn't get a reply. He's not been well.
He's not very well, actually. I bumped into him
he's not well.
in Rye, and he was
no, it's not good.
not as.
He was at church on Sunday.
Yeah.
He didn't look
Did he
very
say
well.
anything?
He didn't look very well.
Came at the end.
We might see it Thursday.
Yeah.
Well, we might not.
But he goes to church in July 1st.
What does he?
The trouble is there's nobody else dealing with it.
He's not on Rye Parish Council.
He's on the
PCC.
He's on the PC.
Oh, right. Okay.
But no real seems to be dealing with that. I mean, he was, this is the problem.
No, I share your
And it's not moving.
point. Well,
How many hours does you want?
right, okay. Next parish meeting is the usual time, 10th of October. Items for information. The first one is the nutrient neutrality. You've heard about this in the past. It's the reason that Ashford haven't been able to build houses on all of their allocated sites in the last few years around the middle of Ashford. The government introduced some amendments in the House of Lords to the Levelling Up Bill a week or two ago, which it thinks will ease the problem by reducing the restrictions that flow from what are established EU habitats regulations, which we still apply, even though we're not in the EU anymore. The government said they would carry on with them. The response from environmental organisations has been largely negative, but there is some uncertainty, some of them disagree, on quite what the amendments, even if they're passed unchanged, will do. We won't know what they get passed as until it goes through the legislative process in the next few months. And there'll be lots of shifts about it.
Not unsatisfactory.
Now, there's no direct effect on Wittersham either way because everything here goes into the bother, whether it's the sewage via the sewage farm down the way or whether it's runoff from farms into streams, which actually produces far more than houses do. That all goes into the Rother, whereas the problem that Ashford has is with the Great Stour, which goes off through Canterbury and then Ashford, then Canterbury, then out to sea, somewhere near Sandwich, I think. So there's no direct effect on Wittersham, but the indirect effect will be on the pressure on Ashford over housing supply, because although they can't build the houses because the government agency has stopped them, the government is still saying, why haven't you built your houses? Now, as it happens, that hasn't caused them to come around places like Wittersham and say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
We'll pass all the planning applications. They haven't done that, which is a bit of a surprise to me, to be honest, but they haven't. But either way, it will, if it all goes through, take the pressure off them. Right, that's nutrient neutrality. Climate change. Kate is here. You may have seen in the Outlook, not very prominently unfortunately in their layout, but Greg and Kate, or Kate and Greg more accurately perhaps, from Tile House Oast have set up a session in here in about 2.5 weeks
Next
time,
week.
is it? Or a week and a half?
23rd.
23rd.
Week and a bit.
23rd.
In here on Saturday morning to start people having a conversation or thinking about the necessary adaptation to climate change and what we might all be able to do along the way. It might perhaps focus on ideas, exchanging information or wider schemes. There's no given agenda as I understand it, but I'm hoping that Kate and Greg will come along well versed. I'm certainly hoping to attend. I hope it gets a good turnout. I will aim to attend for sure.
I'm trying to keep quiet, but you sent me a document which was the impact report for Wittersham. It's incredibly useful, and if you were to circulate it to the parish council, some of them might. It's 14 pages, but it's very readable.
I don't remember where I got it from.
I can send it back to you.
Right, that's good. That's good. I must have found it when I was sorting out old stuff. I remember a session that I attended with Leslie online with a lady from the Cotswolds who is very
That's right.
up, and
It's
then
2
she
years
told us where
out
to
of
go
date,
and look.
but that's
Right.
not the end of the world.
Yeah.
There is the end of the
There's a
world.
whole
coming
load of
soon.
data, although most of the data, to be fair, is wet finger stuff from how many people live there, what's the average amount, therefore so and so, do they have gas, do they not have gas? But nevertheless, it does come
It's
up.
a good
It gives us a
starting point.
start, doesn't it? Exactly. Good. So I think that will be, I think as Kate just said, it's an extremely difficult topic, but we're going to have to try and make some inroads into it, and we have to start somewhere. And it will be good if the people who are interested in it do come. Is it going to go on next door, perhaps, beforehand? Or maybe
I
from
can
you,
put it
actually,
in.
rather
It
than...
wasn't put in.
It's been in 2 outlooks on Oxney, and I have been getting replies
Okay, good.
and
People are getting
suggestions.
interested. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
I mean, it's not going to be a very big meeting.
Okay.
I'll make a cake, how about?
Right, so, I mean, for the rest of you, I think if you put it in your diaries and if you can attend, good. And otherwise, encourage other people to. I think Leslie's still away, isn't she? Did she tell us that?
What, by the 23rd of September? I'm not sure.
I thought I remember her saying that she would attend
Oh,
when it
that's
was
good.
first mentioned, but
I think that's good. Right, you can talk about the first responder in the village AED.
Yes, just that I had an email from Jo,
Positive.
that's the one, asking about it, and she's now away, I'm away, so when I get back we're going to have a meeting here to discuss it, and she's going to help sort out battery. I think probably need a new battery and that sort of thing, and getting it registered as well.
That's the biggest issue. That if you dial 999, we don't have one here.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
right.
not registered.
Because they changed the database that they
Yeah.
use.
And the challenge of that is that could cause someone to lose their life.
Yeah,
It's a really high. But I think she's back from Germany.
She said she was away for a fortnight.
She's in the United States at the moment.
Is she?
They say yes.
Yeah.
And,
But it is a real priority. There are other ones around that aren't registered either. It's a big issue for the emergency services because.
Well, I went in to do it, and it's just you put in your they point your postcode,
Yeah.
and of course then it identifies everything. But yeah,
Is the Small Hive one registered?
I don't
The
know.
one opposite Chapel Down, just out of interest.
I don't know, but it was just
Yeah, it's not registered.
no.
It doesn't exist.
So she's going to help sort that out.
Right. Not on the agenda, but it came in the other day. D-Day commemoration, 80th anniversary next 6th of June. Proposals are being circulated for councils to consider. I doubt we've got anyone with direct memories of that time since Keith Quilter died, and of course he certainly wasn't at D-Day. But I don't know what people think about that. A possibility, of course, is to ask the British Legion what they think they may wish to do.
Well, they've got a meeting very shortly, haven't they? I can't remember which day it is.
I think it's Thursday.
Thursday.
Would you like to put that to them then, Yvonne? Just to say that we've heard about possibilities of commemorating D-Day next June. Do they anticipate
Okay,
wanting to
I've
do
nothing
something?
to do.
And if so, will you discuss?
Day of the week is there.
Right.
Maybe Kevin, the chief executive role.
Anything else from you, Alan?
No.
No, not tonight.
Thank you.
Anything from you? From you?
Just that I have put on items for information that the 2041 plan called the action, so it's,
Okay.
I had itemised it there.
Good.
So,
Excellent.
information, so good.
Oh, I haven't got it on mine. I must have printed them earlier.
No, I did it. One that I thought.
Oh, right.
Ah,
Right.
This
Okay.
week is done.
Thank you very much. Meeting is closed. Thank you for your perseverance.